Good afternoon. Welcome to the Economic Development Authority focused on the marketplace. Today is the, if you will, the premiere, the launch of a four-part series which will help you, the community, to get to know your Economic Development Authority better. Understanding the role that they play, the purpose, looking at their product, program, service offering, so you can be better, well-informed as to what's available to you, what are the resources, what are the tools that is accessible to you, especially in these very tough economic times. As you know, we're an extension of the United States here in the Caribbean. We're an intricate part of the U.S. economy. And the U.S. economy, which we understand is a capitalistic society and is driven by businesses, the private sector. Most people don't understand that the bulk of the people that are hired in the United States are small businesses. And so the reason we put together this program is to afford an opportunity for those, if you will, I want to share a quote with you by President Obama. And I like the quote because it says, while most are focused on finding a job, the president says, entrepreneurs embodied the promise of America, the idea that if you have a good idea or willing to work hard and see it through, you can succeed in this country. And in fulfilling this promise, entrepreneurs also play a critical role in expanding our economy and creating jobs. And I support the president on this because if the emphasis is, if major companies are not hiring, and if you have a particular talent, skill set, then maybe what you ought to do is consider going into business. Because again, let me reemphasize that small businesses is the economic engine behind the U.S. economy. That being said, today what we want to do is we want to take a look at who exactly is the Economic Development Authority, the leadership behind the Virgin Islands Economic Development Authority. And when I use the acronym EDA, is that for the purpose of not saying Economic Development Authority. Again, I'm Anthony Weeks, your host, and today my co-host will be the CEO of the Virgin Islands Economic Development Authority, Percival Clowden. Good afternoon, Percival, how are you?
Not too bad.
Okay.
Thank you for having us.
Today what we're going to do is we're going to allow the public to get to know the leadership of the EDA on a personal level and in your official capacity. So what I'd like to do is start out with you as a co-host today. If you can share with the audience exactly what is your role and responsibility at the Virgin Islands Economic Development Authority.
Well, Anthony, thank you for having us again. I do appreciate this. We at the Economic Development Authority, we are charged with what I think is the most important aspect of driving an economy. And in so doing, the Economic Development Authority was formed in 2001, and it was derived from the Industrial Development Commission. Mm-hmm. We have grown, we have expanded our programs, and our mission is to ensure that we grow the economy through economic growth and development and provide jobs for our residents in the territory.
Okay, okay. Now, who do we have with us? I know that you do have your captain and lieutenants with us today.
Yes.
If you could be so kind to let us know who's with us today.
Yes, with me is the chairman of the board, Albert Bryan, who is also the Commissioner of Labor, and a very important person, Mrs. Jennifer Nugent-Hill. She is the Assistant CEO and Chief Operating Officer of the EDA.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you.
All right. Well, Jennifer, like Mr. Clowden, if you could be so kind to share with the public, the general audience, little bit about who you are and your official role and responsibility.
We're so grateful to be doing this show, and we're happy to be able to share with our community the mission of the Economic Development Authority and really how, as a team, this organization will function. My role as the Assistant CEO and the Chief Operating Officer for the Economic Development Authority is to assist in two ways. The authority has approximately 7 divisions within the organization, and the 7 divisions have varying directors who run the programs. We happen to also be the operator of the industrial park, which is a part of our efforts in our overall economic development strategies. So from that perspective, my role as the Assistant CEO is to support the efforts of Mr. Clouden as the head of the organization and these 7 divisions, as we refer to them. As the Chief Operating Officer, I'm tasked with the responsibility of ensuring the process for moving from an initial intake, be it in our lending division, in our EDC program, as most people know it, and to the overall operational needs of the organization to ensure that what the board's mandates are in fact carried out. My background is that of public policy. I'm a trained strategist in moving ideas forward, getting more actionable items done. I'm a part of the Virgin Islands public education system, as I always tell people. I am a result of good strategies in economic development theories. I always tell people that. I remember as a student at Central High School, walking the dusty roads of Kings Hill, because I lived in Harvey Project. My dad worked at the bauxite plant, which is a direct result of an economic development strategy. From that, I was able to afford the opportunity to go to college. So I'm a living, breathing result of good economic development strategy and really a viable board that carries out, that directs the mission of the organization is really what I'm about. And at the end of the day, it's all about creating a community that can sustain itself, especially as we go through this really tight economic fight that we're in.
Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate it. Now, obviously, when we look at the EDA is a semi-autonomous general governmental agency. And what does that mean exactly? It's a part of the government, but yet at the same time, it's independent of the central government. And you have a number of elected, if you would, appointed board members. And with us this afternoon is the chairman of the board, Commissioner Albert Bryan, Jr. And welcome, Commissioner, to the program.
Welcome, Anthony. It's a pleasure to be here.
You know, you have an awesome responsibility. You are responsible on one hand for having your fingers on the pulse for the labor situation here in the territory, and at the same time, you then have your fingers on the pulse for the economic direction, policy, goals, and objective of the administration.
You just say I'm greedy.
Welcome to the program once again. Why don't you share with us, again, a little bit about yourself and your official capacity as chairman of the board?
Well, you know, one of the things that people don't realize is that EDA is a huge organization, not in terms of people, but in terms of scope. And the Economic Development Authority Board consists of 7 members, but the Economic Development Authority Board is a policy-making board that houses the Government Development Bank Board, the Economic Development Commission Board, the SBDA Board, and the Enterprise Zone Board. So while we function as a policy-making body in most of those boards, the Economic Development Commission, or the EDC, as most people know our agency for, is charged with the policy, being an advisory board to the governor on the giving of tax benefits. So we spend a lot of time doing that. I mean, that people see that as our main scope, but making all of those boards work together and making all our economic development tools work together, tax increment financing, tax breaks, our financing tools under the Government Development Bank, our economic development tools under the enterprise zone and also getting the industrial park involved is kind of like having a toolkit of all these great things that you can use to develop the island economy. And as the chair of the board, I also sit on the Port Authority board, so I get a good look at our ports and the real estates that is available there. So I actually love this job because it's actually being at the center of everything. It's sort of like the band leader conducting an opera. And getting all the instruments to play together is often very difficult. Yeah. But it's, you know, I feel that my board is up to the challenge. You know, we have a really good working environment, and we know how to put these together to make them work for the Virgin Islands.
That's a good segue, Mr. Chairman, as to now that we now get into what exactly is the EDA. And the fact that you wear many hats, how easy or how complex or is it to get the different instrumentality of government to be on the same one page, same accord, and working together? The fact that you sit on the different boards, and you know, as the economic driver, how do you get the sister and all the other agencies to work with you to move in one accord?
Well, I'll tell you, Anthony, the ones that Albert are in charge of are easy to get to work together. But it is a challenge. I think that Governor DeYoung, one of the things from the onset of his administration that he's always stressed to us is that everybody has to play together in the sandbox. And we're not going to fight one another, and we're going to create policy that complements one another. While it's a policy of the administration, the actual carrying out of that synchronization, because people tend to protect the interest of their organization. Sometimes those interests may be in conflict with the total economic development of the Virgin Islands. But we have a way, or the governor has seeded the boards in such a way that they overlap. So I sit on the Economic Development Board and the Port Authority Board, who has the Commissioner of Public Works and the Commissioner of Tourism. They overlap into the Waste Management Board. My overlap goes into the Workforce Board. So people, when you create a circle of people who understand what's going on in the economy holistically. And I think that has enabled us to do a lot of different projects quicker, has able to make us do projects where WAPA, the Port Authority, and the EDA is involved, with the Energy Office, WAPA, and the EDA. And we're learning how to work together, and even though it's in its infantile stages, it's creating an economic development boom in the Virgin Islands. And you could talk to Percy or Jennifer, economic development is not an overnight phenomenon. It's a long process. And we've laid the seeds for what's sure to be a coming boom. And we're already starting to see some of the benefits from that.
That's right.
There is, and obviously your responsibility as policymaker, and in terms of the implementation of those policy and mandate, you do have your general and captain here. And why do you think there, in terms of the community at large, they seem to be a sort of disconnect understanding who exactly the EDA is and what they're supposed to do? Why do you think that exists? And of course, that question it's to all three of you.
I'll take the first shot. I think that we need to do internally, from an internal standpoint, I think we need to do more of this type of activity, going out to the public, informing them the things that we are doing, because it's a whole barrel full of activities that some are out there, others are not. And we need to put it out in a manner that they can understand what we are doing, why we are doing it. For example, we formed a task force to follow up on your question to Albert. We formed a task force to include various government agencies that affect the EDC applicant, so they understand the process that we do and our dependency on the efficiencies that they must bring to the table to ensure that we serve our customers and bring their application to fruition.
And if I may just to add a little bit to that particular question, Anthony, because I think you are right. There is a perception in our community which, with regards to what the EDA is all about. And I believe that part of the, I would say, the gap in that regard is that we're not doing as good a job sharing with our community what the impact of this agency's task is and the accomplishments. I've been with
one of the sound bites is that you're giving away the store.
And I understand that. And I always say that there is this perception that we need to help clarify. And one of the approaches that the authority is in fact now doing this is reaching into our community through forums like this, which is the new initiative of the Economic Development Authority. Precisely because of that perception, our goal was to try and encourage our community to embrace the EDC program as one of the conduits for growth in our economy. And we understand the perception that folks believe that the government just gives away tax to companies as opposed to these companies who should be putting taxes into our community. One of the beauty of this sort of forum is that over the next few months, we are hoping that as we do this ongoing show that is sponsored by EDA, to do just that, the educating of our community to really what economic development is all about. I think the commissioner, the chairman just alluded to the incredible vast array of activities that the agency is responsible for. And oftentimes, you're talking about a core group of 7 board members who has the responsibility to carry out all of the EDA's mandate. That is hard work. It's a lot of work. And the members of the board, outside of the members of the governor's cabinet that are appointed, are volunteers to the board. They're representative from the private sector as well. And gathering them to do meetings that oftentimes take a whole lot of time to review a document to ensure that we're vetting the process involves an incredible amount of time commitment on the part of the members of the board. And I know the community doesn't understand that. So I'm hoping that with the result of this kind of forum that is being hosted by EDA is that we will in fact be able to share with our local community what their what the value of the programs that the Economic Development Authority is engaged in.
The other thing is that the EDA is a support organization, so to speak, and because it's a support organization, it doesn't get to lead. So people don't know that there are hundreds of people that get scholarships every year because of EDA. That there, people, the perception is that EDC companies don't pay taxes. Well, they do. Mm-hmm. A lot of the EDC companies are exempt 100%. So a lot of them are exempt 90. A lot of them are exempt 81 and 72 because they've been here a while. And when this money goes into the economy, it's like silently. It's not like public works where you pave a highway that you go down every day, or like tourism where you see more people.
It's intangible.
It's intangible. But when it's working, it works like a charm. Mm-hmm. The last time we had an economic downturn, it was in fact the EDA that was a savior that came in the day when all these EDC companies came and people started their personal income. That $200 million that's missing out of the economy now is a result of the Jobs Act and the recession that has taken away from the corporate income tax, from the personal income tax that was generated by EDC companies.
So can we anticipate and expect that the EDA is going to be very proactive and aggressive in terms of leading the path, leading the way, in terms of what direction, the new direction, new economic direction for the Virgin Islands?
Yes, we have been very aggressive.
Right, but I'm saying even more so now in this environment.
Well, certainly. This fiscal period, I took a glance at some numbers, and I think we have about 27 new applicants.
As compared to?
As compared to 8 the previous fiscal year. So we are making inroads. Our marketing team, we haven't gotten there yet, but we are making inroads, and we're going to make sure that we see this economy improve, we see the standard of living improve for our people, and which is our mission. But I want to give some numbers here in terms of we're giving away the shop. That's a no-no. I know it's not you.
Consensus.
Yes, I've heard it.
Yes.
I've heard it. But from 1999 to 2009, the EDC companies have paid $550 million in local expenditures,
Wow.
approximately. That in itself has a multiplied and induced effect. So you're going to be, and I estimate it
But
to
the
be
public-
about 3 times
But
more.
the public doesn't know that.
Right. This is why we
this is
want
wh-
to do this.
Right, and this is why
This is why we have this forum.
This forum
Yes.
is going to help to inform
Inform
the public
them,
and
precisely.
give them progress as you're making progress and step.
Precisely. In charitable contributions, $20 million. Scholarships to our students. Funding for nonprofits, for the poor and needy. It created 8,300 jobs. And this is really fantastic. Because
Real numbers.
Real
These
numbers.
are real numbers.
These are real numbers. Yes, we had a study.
We're
done.
not hypothesizing.
No. These are real
and-
hard numbers. This is hard data.
Right. And
So,
so when we
yeah.
talk about a bucket list of things that we want to do over the period, we're going to be able to say to folks, these are the things that we're working on. This is our bucket list.
Right.
And here's what we hope to accomplish over we talk about low-hanging fruits.
Yes.
Short-term, mid-term, long-term.
Right.
This is where we're going. So people have a sense, that sense of anxiety, remove that anxiety to say, listen, we're busy work and here are the tangible things that we're doing.
Exactly.
If I may, Andrew, and I'm sorry, Anthony.
You can call me anything.
Well, no, I'm thinking Andrew, who is leading some of our marketing efforts, because as the CEO mentioned about our marketing efforts, I know in our next series of shows we're going to talk about some strategic marketing that's being led by Andrew Klutz in our marketing area. But I'd like to just piggyback on something that the CEO just said, and I'm sure the chairman can add to this. When I think back on January, whatever date it was, when Hovensa announced the closure of the refinery, it occurred at a time when the board was moving this organization in a direction to come up with a strategy towards using all the tools in our economic development arsenal to invite strategic and targeted industries to the territory. As a result of just the last 4 to 5 months aggressive approach that the board, under the leadership of the chairman and the CEO, has done, we have in fact, as the CEO mentioned, the growth, the 20-something new companies, applications that are in various stages of the process versus last year this time. Keep in mind that last year this time, the economy of the world was faltering. Here we are in 2012, and the Virgin Islands economy suffered a massive blow with the refinery's closure, yet we have 20 new applications in the pipeline wanting to come to the Virgin Islands because of a very focused strategic plan that the Economic Development Authority has put in place. When I mention the role of the board and how involved the board members are, I'm talking about hours of work that's already been done by a staff, vetted through a process to ensure that some of the applicants that are coming through the Economic Development Authority are people that we want to do business with and can fit in our workforce, with our workforce environment. I'm saying that give that some focus as a community to support the efforts of just those 20 companies that are coming into the territory over the next few months. There are things that I oftentimes say that the community needs to be a lot more engaged in the discussions. Nothing that the authority does is done outside of the public scrutiny. All of our hearings are conducted in the public's view. The public is open to see how the board of directors, commissioners, carry out and conduct the business of the Economic Development Authority. It's an incredible process to observe, and it is done with a lot of due diligence, a lot of focus on whether or not this is in the best interest of the Virgin Islands economy. That's a whole lot of work, and we want the public to be mindful of that and to be a part of that by showing up to the hearings. It's an open forum. We're governed under the Sunshine Act. And I think that would help folks to understand that while we've suffered such a major blow with the refineries closure, we are also not hopeless. We have to move this economy forward. And so we're doing that with due diligence and collaborative partnership amongst the agencies, especially that of the Department of Labor for the workforce side as we generate new jobs. And we're also having to concern ourselves with ensuring that the partners that are coming into the territory understands that the obligation that once they've been granted these tax incentive goes beyond just that little part of their company, but rather it goes to the wider community of the Virgin Islands, where at the end of the day, it is more than just a job. It is about an economy that is thriving and seeing growth and expansion as a result of the beneficiaries that are in our territory.
Now, we have just a couple minutes left before we wrap up this first installment of the four-part series on getting to know the EDA and the EDA focus on the marketplace. The concept of globalization. How would, and I'd like to have you both, each of you kind of give a closing remark on this. The territory of the Virgin Islands and its leadership, whether it's the governor and his if you're a different department head, how important it is for the stakeholders, their understanding that the fact that we are in a global economy, a global environment, and that the Virgin Islands need to position and respond to what is happening globally. Who would want to go with that first?
I'll go first because the chairman should always wrap up. At the end of the day, he's the boss. We had better get real. The Virgin Islands is a part of a world economy. We are not a Virgin Islands economy only. The world is partnering with the Virgin Islands as long as we accept that partnership. When I think about the use of technology and the new initiative that is going on in the territory, the VINGN broadband initiative, I can tell you the world is doing business in the Virgin Islands, and we are prepping ourselves to speed that process along. This is, I used to tell people, it's beyond preparation time. It's now the reality of what we're dealing with today as it relates to the global economy.
This is execution time. We are in competition with our neighbors, as close as Puerto Rico. They have changed their laws to offer direct competition to us. We cannot sit and continue as if there's nothing happening.
I think they've taken us for granted for too long.
For too long. So we have to be proactive with that. We have to put things in place, put the machinery in place, expand the minds of our population, so that we can compete globally. There are states that offer incentives in terms of, vast acres of land space for companies to do their development, to do their investment. Unfortunately, we can't offer that. So we have to see what we can offer other than that to encourage them to come here.
Absolutely.
And increase our employment, increase our investment, and those dollars remain here and circulate here. And this is how we're going to grow this economy. Commissioner?
Traditionally we have seen globalization as a threat, but it's a wonderful opportunity for us because unlike America with 300 million people and a China with however much billion, and a India with how much billion. We're 100,000 people. With the amount of people that are out there on the internet, $100 million is not a lot of money. That's a matter of selling 20 million people a $5 million product, or 10 million people a $10 product. $100 million is 10% of the total revenue of the Virgin Islands. So we as a people have an opportunity to make a tremendous impact in our economy by reaching out to the world. Because every little bit counts in the Virgin Islands. It's a small pond and you make big ripples. Added to that, we have a huge pipeline that leads us out into that world, and $120 million of broadband project that brings that right to the curb. All we have to do is access it, and we can make this place really thrive. If you can work from anywhere in the world, why not work from someplace where the temperature is around 84 degrees, the beaches are always wet, the weather is always sunny. As our logo goes, the perfect ingredients for growth right here in the Virgin Islands. Globalization is our opportunity, not a threat.
On that note, I want to say thank you for taking the time to be part of the first, if you will, launch, premiered installment of the Virgin Islands Economic Development Authority focused on the marketplace. Commissioner Albert Bryan Jr., who's chairman, thank you for taking time to be here. Of course, today, Mr. Clouden was my co-host. So Jennifer, I want to thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
And we look forward to each and every week on Wednesday. We're going to be right here, coming before you, sharing the information on exactly what the EDA is all about. I'm Anthony Weeks. Thank you so much. Have a good day.